Let's take a look at solving rational inequalities with the help of the TI-84 plus calculator. Let's write our steps down first. So rational inequalities. Step 1, get everything on the left side, 0 on the right side. Step 2, get a single fraction. Step 3, factor everything, top and bottom, and set each factor equal to 0, and solve. Now these are our critical values. And step 4, using the critical values, the x-axis, and the graph, then determine your answer. If you got a less than or less than or equal to, your answer is below the x-axis. If you got a greater than or equal to, your answer is above the x-axis. Okay, make that a less than or equal to, and make this one a greater than or equal to. Okay, if you got a less than or greater than, then you're going to use parentheses. If you have a less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, you'll use brackets. I'm going to put a note on here. Any critical value that comes from the denominator always has a parentheses on it. Okay, now let's take a look at some problems dealing with this. Take a look at our first one here. We got x plus 3 over x minus 1 is greater than 0. Okay, first step, get everything on the left side, 0 on the right side. Well, that's done. Step 2, get a single fraction. That's done, it's a single fraction. Step 3, factor everything. Well, there's nothing to factor here. These are as simple as it gets. Then it says set each factor equal to 0 and solve. So we'll just go directly to setting x plus 3 equals 0, and we'll set x minus 1 equal to 0. And that gives us x is equal to negative 3, and x is equal to positive 1. Now these are critical values. It says using your critical values, the x-axis and graph, then determine your answer. Well, I'll put negative 3 here, and I'll put a positive 1 here. Now these split them up into intervals. So that's splitting it up like this. Clear over here is negative infinity. Clear over here is positive infinity. This first interval goes from negative infinity to negative 3. This next one goes from negative 3 to 1. And then the last interval goes from 1 to positive infinity. Now we want to graph this. And remember, the trick to graphing a fraction on your calculator is if you have more than a single number or a single variable on top or bottom, you have to put parentheses around that part. So when we plug this in, we'll put parentheses around x plus 3 and parentheses around the x minus 1. So let's graph this. I'll press my y equals, press clear. Do a beginning parentheses, x plus 3, closing parentheses, divided by, beginning parentheses, x minus 1, closing parentheses. And let's press graph. Now we could really care less what the graph looks like. All we're trying to do is trying to see above and below. Well, negative 3, that's about right here. To the left of it, I can see that part of it's above. So if it's above in part of the interval, it's above in all of it. So over here, this is going to be above. Now between negative 3 and positive 1, I can see my graph is below in that interval. Again, if it's below in part of it, it's below in all of it. And from 1 to the right, I see that it's above the x-axis. So this will be above over here. Again, we could care less what the graph looks like. We're trying to identify above and below. For this problem, we got a greater than, and this says a greater than says the answer is above the x-axis. Well, my graph here is above, so that's going to be an answer. And over here it's above, so that'll be an answer also. Well, this interval goes from negative infinity to negative 3, and this interval goes from 1 to positive infinity. Now, infinities always have parentheses on them. This is a greater than. Greater than says the answer, or wait a minute, greater than is the parentheses. So that means I'll put parentheses on these two right here. And if you got two intervals, you connect them with a union symbol. And that's our answer. Let's take a look at another one of those. We've got x over x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, first step, get everything on the left side, 0 on the right side. So I'm going to take this 2, and I'm going to move it over. And we get x over x minus 3 minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. Now remember, mixed numbers, 3, 3.5, that's the same as 3 plus 1/2. To simplify that, we take the number out in front, multiply it times our denominator, and add a number on top. So we take what's out in front, multiply it times our denominator, and we'll add the numerator, what's on top. And then our denominator stays as is. This next step says get a single fraction. This, even though it looks kind of weird, is still a mixed number form. So we're going to take the number of the side, the negative 2, we'll multiply it times our denominator. So take negative 2 times x minus 3, and then we'll add what's up on top, which is an x. And your denominator stays as is. So again, took the number out to the side, multiplied times the denominator, and add number on top, or add what's on top. Well, negative 2 times x is negative 2x, and negative 2 times negative 3 is a positive 6 plus x over x minus 3, greater than or equal to 0. Negative 2x plus x is negative x, so negative x plus 6 over x minus 3, greater than or equal to 0. Okay, we got a single fraction. Now factor everything. I could factor out negative 1 out of the top, but it really wouldn't help me a whole lot. So I'm going to go directly to setting each factor equal to 0. So I'll set negative x plus 6 equal to 0, and I'll set x minus 3 equal to 0. In this one I'll take the negative x to the right side, and we get x is equal to 6. Here I take negative 3 over, and we get x is equal to a positive 3. Those are our critical values. Step 4. Using the critical values, x-axis, and graph, and determine your answer. Okay, so we got 3, and we also got 6 here. Now remember, these split them up into intervals. So there's an interval, and here's another break. Clear over here is negative infinity. Clear over here is positive infinity. This first interval goes from negative infinity to 3. This one goes from 3 to 6, and this one goes from 6 to positive infinity. Now we want to get our graph. And it doesn't matter which one you graph. I'm going to pick this last one. But you do have to pick the one where we have 0 by itself on the right side. Again, if you have more than a single number or a single variable on top and bottom of your fraction, you have to put parentheses around it. So put parentheses around negative x plus 6 and parentheses around the x minus 3. So let's graph that. Go to y equals clear, beginning parentheses, negative x plus 6, closing parentheses, divided by, beginning parentheses, x minus 3. Closing parentheses, and then graph. Okay. Our first critical value is 3. Well, here's 3 right here where my cursor is. To the left of it, I can obviously see the graph is below the x-axis, so it's going to be below. Now between 3 and 6, well, here's 3, and 6 is somewhere here. I can see it's above the x-axis in part of it, so it'll be above in all of it. And from 6 on. 6 is here. 6 on, I see part of it's below, so that means all of it's below. So that would be our above and below. Now this problem is greater than or equal to, and greater than or equal to says your answer is above the x-axis. Well, it's above the x-axis right here. So our answer is going to go from 3 to 6. Greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to says we use brackets. So I'm going to have a bracket on the 6, and I have a parentheses on the 3. Why did that change? Our note. Any critical value that comes from the denominator always has a parentheses on it. This x minus 3, we set that equals 0. That's what gave us x equals 3. That came from the denominator, so that one has to have parentheses on it. And that would be our answer. And that's using the TI-84 plus to help solve rational inequalities.